Hi, I'm Ashley with Campbell. Thanks for investing your time to help your community be a great place to live. Before you watch the video, make sure to click the subscribe button so that we can help you make educated decisions as a board member.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It is a pleasure to be here. And this is a topic that I am very passionate about. I've been in telecommunications for about 20 years and working with homeowners associations and condo associations on this very topic. And so choosing a telecom provider and telecom for the purposes of our definition is referring to TV, internet, and phone service. So it can seem a little daunting, and it is a very important decision because when you think about it, it's the one amenity or the one service that every single person in your community is going to use every single day. So the goal of this presentation today is to give you some steps that I found that work really great for a community when trying to find the right provider, and hopefully make it easy and straightforward so that if it comes up for you, it can be nice and simple. So before we actually jump into that, let's talk a little bit about some trends. So as we know, things changed drastically in 2020, especially when it came to technology and the way that we use technology in our homes. But then we also saw a huge influx of new residents moving into Florida. In fact, Florida had more new people moving into it every single year, second only behind the state of Texas when it came to new people flooding into the state. And although that subsided a little tiny bit, not quite as extensive as it was during the pandemic, we are still seeing lots of new people move into the state. And what that means is that we're starting to see a change in our demographics in many of our communities. So if you think about your community, and if you've been in your community for quite a while, you can probably think back to the way it was when you first moved in. And there's been, significant change now, whether it's related to the pandemic or just natural changes in the community. So the other thing is that in today's environment, internet is no longer a nice to have. It's no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. It's almost as important as electricity or air conditioning here in Florida. So for those reasons, lots of communities are looking for ways to improve their internet services, looking for even more convenient TV services, and just trying to find out, are there other options that we should be considering in addition to our incumbent providers that we have today? So these are a couple of statistics that we like to talk about with communities when just kind of thinking about some of the changes that are coming down the pike as it relates to changes in technology. So the first one is that working from home is here to stay. It spiked during the pandemic. It came down a little bit as people started going back to the office, but now we're seeing kind of a hybrid scenario. So while people may not be working 100% from home, although some people are, many people do have some need to work from home at some point. And we're thinking right now that about six people out of 10 in any given household have a need to work from home. The other thing to think about is, here in Florida, we have lots of people who are enjoying their retirement, but that doesn't mean that they're not still working. They're working for their churches, they're working for volunteer organizations, they're working for their family members, so think about all those things as you're thinking about technology in the home. So we talked about customers needing a good, fast, constant internet connection, always like electricity. And we're also seeing an influx in the number of connected devices in the home. So again, as you're thinking about your community and you're thinking about the demographics and you're thinking about more people using the internet just to do the things they like to do in their homes, but then also connecting their homes so that they have connectivity for all the different devices that need Wi-Fi. So think about this. It used to just be your cell phone and your laptop. Now it's your doorbell, it's your thermostat, it's your light switch, it's your cameras. You could probably think of 10 just off the top of your head right now. So all those things are contributing to a change in internet use in the home. Then outside of that, Wi-Fi in the home is becoming also more popular. We'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But a good strong fiber connection or a coax connection to your home is really important. But then the way that Wi-Fi works inside of the home is also something that many communities are looking at and evaluating their options. So homes are more connected than ever before. There have been 6 or 7, depending on how you want to look at it, iterations of Wi-Fi that have come out. So that's also a place where people are spending time getting educated and making sure that they've got something that's going to work for them now, but then also prepare them for the future. And then securing devices is also critically important. One last thing on changing landscape. We know that fiber is starting to become more and more popular. It really started taking off in Florida a couple years ago, but by the end of 2025, we expect that across the country, 60% of households will have access to fiber optics. And with more people working from home and using the internet in their homes as well, many communities, just like you, are looking for options and considering and exploring what might be available. So that brings us to our topic today. Why are we here? Choosing the right provider. So the agenda that I've got for you today is pretty simple. Recommended steps. This is just kind of like a guide that you can follow while you're out there choosing the right telecom provider, a recommended timeline, and then at the end, we'll just talk briefly about whole home Wi-Fi and how that technology works inside the home. So getting started, in terms of deciding for your community, we've broken this down into 6 easy steps. So the first is to discuss as a board. You got to have communication. You got to talk about it. The next is to plan and communicate. Educate and survey the residents. Make sure the residents are involved. This is such a critical step that I've seen be missed in the past. And when the residents are included and they're given a chance to participate on some level, it can make this process so much easier and ultimately the outcome, regardless of what you decide to do, even more successful. So educate this and survey the residents, build an RFP, analyze your RFP results, and then negotiate and finalize with your chosen provider. So pretty simple, right? Let's dive in and make it even more simple. So the first step, discussing as a board. Like I said, this might seem self-explanatory, but you have to talk about it. Talking about it as a team, talking about as the leadership group of your community, or if you're a manager, helping your community think about this as a team. It's so critical and so important. So what I've seen work really well is to just start off as a conversation. Let's get curious. Let's think about what we're seeing. And so these are some really great questions to just kick off that conversation. First off, what are the long-term goals as a community? Are we competing against other communities nearby for new homeowners? Do we have long-term plans? Do we have upgrades that we're thinking about doing? Are there going to be changes in our technology? So these are all kinds of things that as a group you can talk about and think about. And that will probably help you guide your decision in terms of what you're looking for in a telecommunications partner. Also, again, asking yourself, have we seen a change in demographics? When we go to the pool, are we hearing more stories about people working from home? Are we hearing about people doing telemedicine? So paying attention to those kind of things can also help you figure out what you might like to do. Some other questions here to ask: are the residents asking for change? That can be a really good indicator. Or conversely, are you really not hearing anything at all? Do we need an upgrade to our network infrastructure? So this question can usually be answered in a couple of different ways, but it's a great one to start off with. So just talking as a group, as a board, personally, what are your experiences? How is the internet working in your home? How is the television service working? Is there anything that you would like to change or anything you'd like to keep with what you have right now today? Revenue for upcoming projects. I promise this will be one of the questions at the end, which if you have questions, you can type them in and we'll talk about them at the end of the discussion. But looking at your telecommunications options and negotiating with different providers can help your community earn revenue. And there's lots of ways to do that. If you're in a bulk agreement right now today, you could potentially look at negotiating a lower rate, which could save you money and earn revenue for the board. You could also look at receiving complimentary services to replace services that maybe you're paying for on a retail basis today, like in a clubhouse, a guard, or a gate. And then also looking at additional financial incentives. So, this is common in the telecommunication industry where there might be financial incentives that are included to your community as you're negotiating a contract. So again, think about those upcoming projects. Is there going to be, do you have an immediate need, or could there be a need for some revenue upcoming? And then are there consequences if you do nothing? So, are you having significant problems with reliability? Are the residents complaining? Do you need to look at revenue for upcoming projects? Those would all be great reasons to start looking at your options. Or you might say, we have the perfect situation in our community. There's absolutely nothing we would like to improve. Everything is great. But the point is, you just want to have this conversation as a board, as a leadership team, and start that and use that as your first step to figure out how to go forward. So once you've discussed that, now is the time to start planning and communicating. Focus and emphasis on communicating. So now is the time to start telling your community, telling your residents, telling your property management, telling everyone what you plan to do. As you've probably all seen, now more than ever, transparency inside of communities is so critical. And, helping people become as aware as they can be of things that are important to the board, projects that the board is working on, solutions that the board is trying to bring to the community. So these are just a couple of ways that you can make sure that residents at least have an opportunity to be informed. I understand you put all of this out there, you try to communicate, and sometimes you just have some folks that it's impossible to get through to. But here's where you start. Put it on the board meeting agenda. Once you've decided that this is something that the board does want to do, talk about it in an open forum and make sure that it goes into every agenda that you're talking about. 1, for transparency, 2, for organization, but then also 3, so that there is a recorded documentation of this being a project that the board is talking about and thinking about. This way, anyone who can't attend a board meeting or doesn't have the ability to follow up and read meeting minutes can always go back and see that it was something discussed on the meeting agenda. Next, email blasts and newsletters. There are some fantastic websites out there. I know Campbell does a great job with helping communities, put communication out. But this is a great way to just, provide information, even if it's just high level. Hey, everybody, this is something we're starting to look at. We're evaluating our options. We have a fiduciary responsibility as a board. And so we're going to be, putting this on the agenda moving forward. As simple as that, but it lets everyone know what's going on. Social groups. So this is also a great way to spread the word in kind of a grassroots effort. So, there are lots of wonderful social groups that we have in our communities, card games, water aerobics, golf clubs, all those things. Ask some of your ambassadors in those groups to just spread the word and say, hey, the board is starting to look at this. You might want to come to a meeting if it interests you. Community website, always a great place to put information. And then if you're going to be making a committee, forming a committee to help you with this, which lots of boards do, lots of boards decide that they want to take it on themselves and the executive board is going to handle it. Other boards say, oh my gosh, we are so busy right now already, we need some help. So if you are going to form a committee, what we've seen work really well, and again, in the effort of transparency and inclusion, let the community know that you're going to be forming a committee and that you're looking for volunteers. You don't have to take everyone who volunteers, but you want to give everyone an opportunity to at least raise their hand and be a part of the process and be considered for a committee. So now that you've communicated, and usually this step takes a little bit of time. So, talking as a board and then discussing how you're going to communicate to the residents, working with your property management, your leadership team there to figure out what's the best way to communicate with the residents can take a couple of weeks up to a couple of months. But once you've got some good engagement with the residents, now is the time that you really want to educate the residents on what you're going to be looking to accomplish. So here's a place or here's a time where you can share with the residents what you've learned and what you've decided to do anecdotally as a board. So letting them know some of the key objectives that you're trying to solve by looking for telecommunications providers. The next step here is to do a survey with the residents once you've provided some education. And I'll say that providing the education is so critical and so important, and here's why. What we know in Florida is that we have a wide range of people in all of our communities. And some of those people are very technically savvy and they know all about streaming and they know all about gigabits and they know all about fiber optics. And then other folks are not so much so. They might use those products, but they may not have a functional understanding. So in order to make sure that you get the most accurate results from your survey, you want to make sure that you're providing education to everyone. So we're starting off on an even playing field. So some of the things you might want to educate residents about include the topics that I've got here. So review the value and the benefits of fiber to the home. Looking at fiber optics as an upgrade in the community can be something that you want to consider and provide education on. The other thing might be bulk rates. So, here again, bulk can be kind of a controversial topic, but I will say that over the last several years, we've seen quite an increase in associations looking at a bulk savings plan for TV and/or internet service. Back in the day when I first started in cable, everyone had bulk TV only. TV was the most important thing. And when it was a bulk service, that meant that basically the association went to a provider and said, hey, we'd like to provide TV service for everyone in the community. We'd like to negotiate a significantly discounted rate. And we, the association, will collect that fee through our dues and we will pay the provider directly. Some great savings can be had there. And in addition, some additional benefits now with, certain perks that you get as being a bulk customer. But what's interesting is that now we've seen that switch. So although TV is still a popular amenity to include in a bulk package, internet service is definitely becoming more and more popular to include. So helping residents understand how much savings they could potentially realize if the association did decide to enter into a bulk contract is some education that you want to provide. Not saying that you're going to do it, but at least so that it's something the residents can consider. Internet usage in the home. You want to find out, are people using internet as much as you think they are? And it's also really great to understand what people are currently paying for internet services so you can identify whether converting to a bulk contract might make sense for you. Or if you already have a bulk contract with TV service, maybe adding internet service into that bulk package could be something you want to think about. Streaming service. So I was talking to a community this morning and they were joking with me and saying, well, Jacky, we have some folks in our community that don't even know what streaming is. They think streaming is when you decorate for a party and you put streamers up everywhere. But we all know that streaming, of course, refers to watching TV over the internet. So whether it's watching YouTube TV or Netflix or Hulu, those are streaming products that are becoming more and more popular. So again, you just want to make sure everyone understands what you're going to be asking about in the survey so that you can get accurate results. Some ways that you can get the information out to residents about these topics. There's a couple of different ways. I'm sure you can get creative. You can, think of ways that have worked in your community already. But what we've seen work really well is education seminars, similar to the one that you're on right now today. Lots of providers will be happy to come out and just provide education to the residents. So we can do that in a town hall setting, or we can do it over Zoom. Thanks to the pandemic, lots of people are more comfortable with Zoom. If you do it over Zoom, or even if you do it in person, think about recording it. Just like Ashley's doing with this recording, if someone can't attend, you can always put it on your website and again, just increase transparency and information for the residents. And then additional materials. Again, thinking about our diverse groups of residents, people consume information in lots of different ways. So in order to get great results again, and the goal here is to educate residents, make sure they know what's going on, think about different ways that you can make this information available. So if someone can't attend a town hall, can't watch the Zoom, is there information that you could potentially put out via email, in a newsletter, or on your website? So the resident survey, here you're really just trying to gather actual and factual information about what's going on in the community. This is going to be so valuable for a lot of different reasons. The top two that come to mind are, one, participation, and resident engagement. So in many cases, you may not have to take a vote of the residents or the owners to make a change to your telecommunications provider or bulk services. However, if you do a survey, this is a way for residents to feel like they are included in the conversation and to also provide valuable feedback to the board. So the survey helps with engagement with the residents, and it also gives actual factual information to the board that you can use to make your decision and really start to hone in on what's important to the community. So a couple of questions that you want to ask to start to understand needs in the community. Are you able to use the internet in every single room in your home with the same amount of reliability? This goes back to the Wi-Fi question. Wi-Fi is becoming more and more important. Almost every device in our home these days is connected to the internet via a wireless connection versus wired. So you want to understand, is there some improvement there, or is everything working great for the residents? Ask them to rate the quality of the internet connection that they're receiving now. So a great question to ask is, do you have any interruptions when you try to use Zoom or Teams, if you're a person that uses those kind of platforms? And if so, how often are you experiencing an interruption? Or conversely, is everything working great? Asking about cybersecurity. So, here again, lots of companies are offering some kind of a security package included in their Wi-Fi. So finding out from residents if that's important to them. In some communities, it's super important. In other communities, maybe not so much. So again, here, this helps you understand what to focus on. Asking about streaming services is also really important. One, to understand, are people watching TV on a traditional cable package? Because that could be really important for you if you currently offer TV service to the residents. Or if you don't have a bulk TV package and everyone's kind of on their own. So maybe some people subscribe to traditional TV service with a cable or a satellite company, or maybe people are streaming their content and they're watching live news and sports on platforms like YouTube TV or Zumo. Also understanding Netflix and Hulu. The reason for this is, one, to understand how people are using and watching their TV content, but then also if lots and lots of people are streaming, that means that they're using a good amount of bandwidth of internet connectivity inside of their home. So again, using this data to think about what's important right now, but then also as a board, planning for the future and thinking about how choosing a telecom provider will help you make sure that your residents have the internet connectivity they need now, but then also for the long-term future. Other questions here, asking about understanding of fiber optics, whether the community values that or not. If they don't, maybe it doesn't make sense to pursue it. Or if they do, how can you determine what they want to know? Working from home is a great trend to ask about. And then also asking residents how many Wi-Fi devices they have connected in their homes can again help you understand what kind of internet capacity you need. Lots of us providers can help you with a survey. Bluestream has one available that's very simple and easy to use, and we'd love to share that with you if you'd like it. So once you've collected your data and you've analyzed what's going on in the community, this is where you start to create your wish list. And, doing an RFP, which an RFP, lots of you already know, but for anyone who may have a question, RFP stands for Request for Proposal. This is the opportunity to really create a wish list, like I said. So the first thing you want to do is describe your community. What you'll be doing with the RFP is basically sending out this RFP to all the providers that you'd like to receive a proposal from. And if you describe your community, provide some basic information about your demographics, changes you've seen in demographics in the recent past, talk about whether you have single family or MDUs. This is really helpful for us as providers to start to think about your community and get a picture of what you're going to be looking for. The next thing is to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So even if it sounds unlikely, even if it sounds pie in the sky, it never hurts to just include any of the things that you might want to ask for and you might want to accomplish as a board into your RFP. Establish a list of questions. This step is where you're going to find out about all of us providers. So some common things that boards like to understand is how long have you been in business? What kind of services do you offer? How many customers do you have? Tell us about your network operations. Tell us about your infrastructure. Whatever you want to know, whatever's important to you, put it into the RFP and make us tell us about ourselves, or tell you about ourselves. And then ask for proposals. So this is where you can use the data that you've collected from your residents in the survey to help you try to figure out what kind of a proposal you might want to receive from a provider. That proposal might be bulk, so it might include some kind of a significant discount on internet or TV pricing, or it may just be right of entry, which means that the provider comes in, they operate, they provide services, and the residents can choose whether they want to receive services from that provider on an individually billed basis. So here's where you can create your package. And if it's going to be a bulk package, this is a good place to indicate, do you want TV service? And if you do, how robust of a channel lineup do you want to include? Do you just want to provide, let's say, the basic channels? Or do you want a pretty good TV package that includes a lot of the basic ABC, NBC, CBS broadcast channels, as well as cable favorites like ESPN and Home and Garden and Hallmark? So all of those things can be negotiated. You also want to think about, do you want to include DVR services? How many boxes do you think you'd like to include? And then if you're going to be including internet service on a bulk basis, use the data from your survey results to try to identify what might be a good fit to serve the needs of most of the people in the community. You're never going to make all the people happy all of the time, but by using the survey results, you can probably identify some trends in terms of what people are using today for their internet package, and that might be a good place to start when you're thinking about requesting services on a bulk basis. And the last piece is ask for a due date. Make sure that the providers understand that you need them to respond to you as of a certain date. And typically what we see is that, anywhere from a couple of weeks to, maybe a month is usually what we see in terms of a timeline that associations give to the providers to let them know that they'd like to receive responses back. The other thing to think about here is how you'd like that information provided. Would you like the providers to print a proposal and drop it off to you? Should they mail it to you? Would you like them to send it to you electronically? This is a great way to just let everyone know what you're expecting. One last thing to say about this is talk about this as a team. As a board or as a committee, discuss what's going to happen if you have a provider who misses the deadline. Are they going to be eliminated? Are you going to offer flexibility? If you offer flexibility to one, are you going to offer that flexibility to all? Lots of different options here, but you just want to think this through so that you have a plan and you can set that expectation in the RFP. So now that you've put the RFP out to the providers, hopefully you've got tons and tons of proposals flooding in and you've got lots of options to consider. Now is when you want to analyze those RFP results. And something that I hear every single day when it comes to looking at telecommunications providers is the term comparing apples to apples. So you absolutely want to make sure that you are understanding all the information that you're gathering and that you're evaluating all the providers on an even playing field. So you're understanding things like, is the provider going to be making an infrastructure upgrade? Are you going to be receiving a new fiber optic network? Or are there going to be enhancements made to an existing network? Those are all things that you want to gather and consider, in addition to whole home mesh Wi-Fi, products that are going to be provided. Are there any courtesy services that are going to be included? So there are tons and tons of things to consider. Again, Campbell probably has some tools for you. And then of course, providers like Bluestream or any of us can offer you a checklist that gives you kind of a starting point to figure out how you can start evaluating the providers and start looking at all of your results as a whole. The other thing that you'll want to do as part of analyzing the RFP results is to start reaching out to the providers that you're interested in. Because let's face it, you might receive some proposals and you might say, nope, this one's out for whatever reason. But for the ones that you are interested in considering, now is it's kind of a get to know you period. Once you're going through those results, you can also start asking for information from the providers. Ask them to come in and do a presentation. Maybe it's just to the committee, maybe it's just to the board to start off with, but it's a great way to get to know the company, because let's face it, this is going to be a long-term contract, and it's going to be a partnership. So you want to spend the time to get to know the providers, ask for demonstrations, have them bring in their TV services. Some providers are able to offer those TV services in a few select resident homes. So you can actually test out the services before you make a decision. Site surveys are also very common, where the provider will want to come out and do a site survey in the community, so that if they are not the incumbent, they can understand what they'll need to do to bring services into the community and create an infrastructure. And then you also want to check referrals. So, we all have referrals. We'll make sure you've got tons of people to talk to that can tell you about our services and experiences with the different companies. Once you start selecting a few candidates that are your top one or two, you may want to also think about setting up a time to introduce the providers that have, made it to your short list to your residents. So again, thinking about transparency and communication with the residents. This is just a really great way to let the residents hear what the board and the committee have been considering. They may not weigh in, they may not have a vote, but again, it just lets everyone know what's going on and what's being considered. So the seventh step, this is the last piece of it. Hopefully you've got all of your provider information, your proposals, you've done all your due diligence. And so now you can start the process of contract negotiation. So a few things to think about before you start the negotiations. Think about timelines. How long is it going to take for a provider to come in and build a network? That will let you know when you need to have a contract signed, and you can work backwards from there. You also want to think about your current agreement expiration. So if you have a bulk agreement today and you're thinking about making a change, you want to make sure that any provider who's going to be coming in has enough time to build their network and get everyone installed before your current bulk agreement expires. Another thing to watch out for is automatic renewals. If you are thinking about making a change and you have a current contract, make sure that you're asking for help. Make sure that you're looking at your current contract and you understand what kind of notice needs to be provided in order to terminate your existing contract if you choose to do so, without having it automatically renew for another 1 year, 2 year, who knows how long kind of period. Something to consider is responsiveness during this process of negotiation. How fast is someone getting back to you? We always like to say that this is a really good indication of what your relationship is going to look like with a provider, with a partner. If they're on their best behavior at the very beginning of the process, that's a pretty good indication. But if you're experiencing delays, if you're not getting information in a timely fashion, those are definitely things to just take note of. Maybe there's a good reason, but again, talk about it, mention it, make sure that there's expectations with your selected provider so that they understand what kind of a responsiveness you expect to have, and also make sure that they can meet your timelines. So engaging with legal is the next step here. And we've seen lots of communities who have super smart people on their boards who have lots of legal experience. Maybe they're current or former attorneys. That's a great option. It's such a blessing when you have people in the community that have that expertise and they can volunteer. And in many cases, boards want to make sure that their board attorney has an opportunity to look at the contract. A third option is to ask for a telecommunications attorney to review the contract as well. You might have a board attorney who has lots and lots of experience with telecommunications agreements, as well as other association legal issues. But if you don't, there are tons of attorneys out there we can recommend, Campbell can recommend, that specialize in telecommunications agreements, and they can help you. So again, make sure that you're thinking about that. You're talking about that as a team. Who's going to be looking at this contract with you and helping you? Timeline again. Legal teams tend to be very busy, and especially like this time of the year. So think about any kind of any delays that might be caused. Ask your attorney if you're going to be using an attorney. Are they going to be on vacation? Is the board going to be on vacation? Or is anyone going to be out of pocket? Are people traveling for season? These are all things you want to consider as you're negotiating the contract and just keeping an eye on that timeline so you can make sure that you achieve your goals and you have plenty of time to do it. And then, so really that's the process. Those are the 7 steps. This deck will be available. You can definitely use it as a playbook. And in terms of the timeline that we typically see for a community to be really successful and have plenty of time to do all of the steps that we just talked about, it's usually an 18 to a 24-month process. So again, what you want to do is determine when do you need to have services active with your current provider or with a new provider, and then work backwards from there. So about 24 months out is when many communities start to have that conversation as a board to say, hey, maybe we need to look at our options. 12 to 24 months out has usually given the board about a year to do all the steps we just talked about, and then have a contract signed about 12 to 24 months away from your expiration date. That'll give you and your provider, whether it's your incumbent or a new one, plenty of time to get things done. Surveying residents, collecting proposals, all of these are sprinkled throughout the process. But as I mentioned, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to go through these steps, making sure that you're accounting for any kind of slowdowns or delays that might pop up. So real quickly, I know coming up on time here, I want to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions. But in terms of technology and thinking about fiber to the home and Wi-Fi inside of the home, as I mentioned in the very beginning, internet service in the home has become so important these days, and it's a big driver for why a lot of communities are actually taking a look at their options when it comes to telecommunications providers. So let's dive into fiber optics here a little bit. There are lots of ways that communications services can be delivered inside of homes here in Florida, or anywhere really. So there are coax networks, and coax is coaxial cable. There are also, phone lines, phone services. There's fiber optics. Wireless is also becoming something that we've seen tons and tons of commercials about. So there's lots of different ways to deliver these products and services. But again, thinking about your community is what's going to help you determine what the right infrastructure is going to be for what your community needs now and then also into the future. Fiber technology has become very popular, and as I mentioned, homes across the entire country are going to have fiber optics more and more, especially in the coming years. But these are some of the ways that fiber can benefit your community. So fiber is a material that's used for telecommunications networks that's considered an upgrade from traditional coaxial cable or copper lines. And the reason for that is the material that's used. Fiber optics is typically glass or plastics, and it can carry a good, strong signal for really long distances without any kind of interference. So that's why a lot of the networks across the entire world are built out of fiber. So something to think about. The other thing is that powerful internet networks built of fiber optics can not only provide really good, strong internet connectivity now, but they can also sustain strong internet speeds into the future. So we know that the average household right now needs about 500 megabits per second. We expect 2 gigs to be the norm in the next couple of years, and that amount of speed is just going to continue to grow. So we know that a fiber optic network can handle those increases in speeds for years and years, decades to come. So again, another reason why communities are looking at it. And then improving experience. So again, if you go back to that initial discussion that you have as a board, and you ask yourself, are we seeing any problems with reliability? Are we hearing complaints from residents who aren't able to work from home? They aren't able to watch, participate in Zoom meetings. Those might be some indicators to think about whether a fiber optic infrastructure upgrade could be a good move for your community. So again, not saying it's a must-have, lots of options out there, but just some ideas to consider as you're thinking about it as a board. And then the next thing to think about is Wi-Fi inside of the home. So making sure you've got a good, strong network to the home is the first step, and then Wi-Fi inside of the home is the second step. That's how you make sure that you complete the cycle, you complete the circle. So looking at stronger signals, stronger Wi-Fi signals in the room, asking questions about whether connectivity can happen everywhere inside of the house or even on doorsteps. What we're seeing is that a lot of folks like to have a Ring doorbell on their doorstep, but may not have enough Wi-Fi coverage so that the Ring doorbell can be connected. So things to think about, things to ask your provider as you're going through the process of choosing the right provider. And then also some additional features with Wi-Fi that are available these days. What we see in Florida, what I see in Florida is diversity. So I have some people who are like, hey, I just want to connect my phone to my Wi-Fi. I want to be able to look at my Facebook. I want to be able to see my grandkids. That's it. I don't care about all this fancy stuff. Other residents tell me, I want to be able to manage my network. I want to see how many devices are connected. I want to be able to secure security protocols. So those are, again, things that are available through Wi-Fi today, and definitely questions you should ask during the process of looking for a telecommunications provider. So that is the end of my presentation. And so what I'll do now is just take a look in the Q&A section and see if we've got some questions. And we do. So great. So the first question is from Jack. What is mesh Wi-Fi? That is a great question. And I skipped over this slide for the sake of time. But Jack, I'm so glad that you asked me this. This is a picture of mesh Wi-Fi. And pardon me, I'm going to turn my camera a little bit since the sun has come blazing in on me. So when you think about Wi-Fi of the past, we would have a Wi-Fi router that would be located somewhere in our home. And typically, if you were close to that router, that Wi-Fi router, you had a really good, strong Wi-Fi connection. But as you moved further and further away from the router, so like for instance, if the router was placed in the living room, and this picture over here on the left shows an example. So if the Wi-Fi router was in the living room, if you were close to the router, you had a great signal. But as you move further and further away in the house, away from the router, you might start to experience slower Wi-Fi speeds or maybe even no Wi-Fi connectivity at all. Mesh Wi-Fi is a way to not only extend that Wi-Fi signal to cover the entire home, but it's also a way to optimize the Wi-Fi signal and create a blanket over the entire home. So you've got Wi-Fi coverage everywhere in the home, and then also maximize the way that the Wi-Fi is performing so that you have a great experience no matter what you're doing on your Wi-Fi network and which devices are connected. Miles has a question about, could you compare fiber optic service with 5G service? Yes. Miles, that's a great question, and it comes up a lot, especially as communities are thinking about this, because, there's Starlink out there, right? There's tons of satellites. Elon Musk, he's so busy putting satellites up there. Are we just going to go wireless one day? Here are some things to think about when you think about fiber optics, and it depends on who you ask. This is just my personal opinion and what I've seen in the industry. So fiber is extremely reliable. You will always have a more reliable, a faster, better experience when you're connected via a wired connection, whether that's to your home or it's to your laptop or any device that's connected to the internet. However, we know that our cell phone services have come leaps and bounds over the last several decades. So 5G is the next iteration of cell phone technology. And we know that 5G offers faster speeds. But there's some things to think about here. One of those things is that all of those 5G towers, all of the cell towers that we see all across the country, all across Florida, the way that those cell towers work is through a fiber optic connection. So again, thinking back to wireless versus wired connection. Wired will always be more reliable, faster, stronger than wireless. So again, not saying that wireless is not good, because it is in certain situations. And again, just my opinion. The other thing to think about is that most of the Wi-Fi traffic and even cellular cell phone traffic in the entire country is actually carried over internet connections inside of our homes, inside of businesses. So for instance, when you take your cell phone into your home, your cell phone automatically connects to your Wi-Fi network. It's not using that 5G connection. So if you were to remove that wired connection, that connection inside of your home or inside of your business, and rely solely on that 5G wireless connection, and then all of your friends and all of your neighbors and everyone in the state of Florida was also using that cellular connection, what kind of experience would you have? And I'll tell you, if you've been through Florida after a hurricane, when all those cell towers go down, you get no cell phone reception and no cell phone coverage. So while I think that 5G is an emerging technology and it's fantastic for what we use it for today, and even the Internet of Things, my personal belief is that you will always have a future-proofed connection with a wired fiber optic connection over 5G. So I'm very passionate about that. Miles, if you'd like to talk more, give me a call after the webinar and we can chat about that. Let's see. Miles also says, can you talk about where the industry will be in 3 or 4 years? Will there be consolidation in streaming services? What about the increased costs of broadband channels? Oh my gosh, Miles, you're asking me all the fun questions here. So in terms of what I see happening with the industry and TV and internet, so there's two pieces there. With TV, there are lots of changes going on. We know that programming is becoming more and more expensive every single day. And it's just, it's a fact of whether you're watching it on Netflix or you're watching it on broadcast television. The other thing to think about too is that programmers, so the people who create our TV content, they're having to now buy new equipment so that they could produce content in 4K, the next generation of HD service. That's only going to continue. They're going to have to buy new equipment and new software whenever 8K comes out. So the cost of programming we have seen go up every single year. It used to be modest increases of like 3 to 5%, but on average, providers like Bluestream or anyone else who provides TV service, they're seeing increases when it comes to TV programming anywhere from 8 to 15%. And that's happening for cable channels, streaming services, and broadcasters. So will there be a tipping point? Who knows? But a great way to fight against that kind of inflation is to enter into a bulk contract. Again, just something to consider, but if you're thinking about ways to control costs, with a bulk contract, you can negotiate TV services into your contract, and you can also negotiate a limited annual increase every single year. So regardless of what inflation is doing, regardless of what programmers are doing, your community can guarantee that your increases for TV services will only be X amount every single year. The other thing is streaming is on the rise. Absolutely, 100%. More and more people are streaming today, whether it's for their live content or, people just like the shows they like to watch on Disney Plus or Discovery Plus or all the pluses, as well as Netflix. So we're going to continue to see that increase. What I will say is that we are seeing now more of a merger between live TV and streaming services. So for instance, if you do still, get your TV services through a company like Bluestream that does provide TV services, many of our customers want to be able to watch their live TV, get to their DVR programming, but also have access to all their streaming platforms through one remote. So it's out there. If you don't have it today with your current provider, you can absolutely get it. But what we're seeing is that many people are looking for ways to save money on TV services, get the traditional TV platform they know and love, but then also integrate streaming. So great. Again, Miles, if you want to talk more after the webinar, let's connect. Great questions. And so let's see, there's another question here from Christopher. Among the various options available, are there important differences in how resilient or robust they are to storm and hurricane damage? I'm thinking more about duration of service loss than repair costs per se. Great question, Christopher. So yes, also great questions to ask as you're looking for a telecommunications provider. How did they perform after recent hurricanes? How long were people without service? How long did it take them to restore their networks and get customers back online? Great questions to ask. We do know that typically fiber optic networks, because they're most often placed underground, tend to be more resilient and tend to be more protected after a hurricane. But another great question to ask is redundancy. So, does your provider have redundancy built into not only its core backbone network, but also the internet that's, the connectivity that's serving your community? The reason for that is, Christopher, just as you know, after a storm, lots of crazy things can happen. So if there's going to be a cut from the provider's one direction, do they have the ability to transfer over to another connection to bring your community back online? Another great point is electricity. So we know that electricity is a big problem after a storm. So great questions to ask are, are there battery backups included in your provider's core network? Do they have generator accessibility so that they can make sure generators are powering their infrastructure so that the service remains up and running? Another great question here is that, or a great thing to think about, is that lots of homes in Florida have generators in the home. So your TV could be running, your modem could be running inside of your home. But if your provider is not up and running because they don't have power, or they don't have a power source to use in the event that commercial power is off, that could impact your time without service as well. So wonderful questions to ask. And let's see, I've got a couple more here. Let's see. Okay, David has a question about snowbirds. Our community has many snowbirds. We don't have a bulk agreement now, and many are objecting to paying year-round for service, and they would only use the service 4 to 5 months per year while they're here in Florida. How do we effectively address that issue for the long-range benefit of the overall community? David, great question. And again, I didn't have an answer for this 20 years ago when I was talking about bulk TV services or even bulk internet services. But there have been a couple of critical changes probably over the last 5 years or so. The first one is many homeowners want to have internet service connected in their Florida homes year-round so that they can monitor all those devices that help them keep an eye on their house. The Ring doorbell, the security cameras, the leak detection in condos, that can be so critical, thermostats. All those connected devices need to have internet service year-round. And so in the past, the snowbirds would just call up the internet company and say, hey, turn off the internet. I don't care about it. But now those snowbirds are wanting to make sure that they've got visibility into their home, and they need internet to do that. Oftentimes, what you'll find is that there's a vacation plan that you can put on your internet service, which allows you to basically drop from, your current amount that you're paying while you're there to a reduced amount while you're gone. However, when you take advantage of that vacation plan pricing, typically what you see is that your internet service also goes down as well to sometimes between 3 and 5 megabits per second, which typically isn't enough to run all the devices that you want to keep an eye on when you're away. So for that reason, when we start asking snowbirds, hey, are you using your Ring doorbell year-round? Are you wanting to have access to internet connectivity in your home? Many snowbirds are saying yes. So that kind of eliminates that question or concern for internet service. Now, when it comes to TV service, this is another great question to ask your potential partners as you're looking for a telecommunications partner, because many of us offer a streaming application that's a companion to the traditional TV service that we offer here in your home in Florida. So for instance, Bluestream provides TV service in the home, but then when you're away up north, you can also take your TV service with you on the go using a streaming app. So the great news there is that you can use your TV service year round. One last question, I think, before I don't want to go over time, but one last question from Sam is how many vendors are currently serving HOAs? And Sam, it feels like that number is growing every single day. I would say that in the state of Florida, there are probably 5 or 6, pretty well-known, reputable companies that are serving HOAs. Of course, there can be some new ones out there that are popping up, but a great thing to do is connect with Campbell and ask your property management, who do you know? Who would you recommend? And that can be a really great place to start.
Thanks for watching. For more great educational content, click the subscribe button now.